Okay, so in this video we're going to show how to make a kind of a DIY mining rig stand that has also casters on the bottom, wheels that can allow it to move around. For this build I'm going to utilize two IKEA lac end tables. I got them for about $8 a piece, and they'll work great for this. I'm actually only going to use the legs from one set. The legs from the other set I'll just discard. I just need the base for stability reasons. As you can see here with this particular mining rig I'm done, and again I'm actually going to be doing two stacked on top of each other for this build, but this is 20 inches wide and 16 inches deep, and so it fits perfectly on one of these lac end tables. So it'll do great there. If you want more information on this, on how to build one of these, I have another video. I'll put the link in the description as well. But let's go ahead and start the assembly and kind of show you how I'm going to go ahead and put this together. Alright, so this is the basic layout. It's essentially the full lac table here on the top, and then a second lap surface will be the bottom, and then I'll put casters, 4 casters underneath here. I'll probably use this section down here to put like UPS, battery backup units or power strips, and then I'll have one mining rig here, another one stacked on top of it. Basically, these legs super easy to install with the included hardware. It's just these double-sided threaded screws in, and then I'll attach the bottom part using some probably some Gorilla Glue and also some of these. So these are the other things I'm going to use to secure the legs, just to make sure they're nice and sturdy. As you can see, basically it's a corner brace made specifically for these IKEA lac tables. As you can see here in my 3D printer enclosure, I'm also using a lac end table, and I'm using these brackets to basically secure the legs to the surface here. And it doesn't, it's like super solid, and you can see in the back there I got a few more in the corners and what have you. So I'll use 4 of these in addition to Gorilla Glue to secure those bottom legs, and it should be pretty solid. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble all of it, and then I'll circle back with the completed table, and also show the wheels, the casters I'm gonna include as well. And I know this video is for people more interested in cryptocurrency mining, what have you. But if you guys are ever looking at 3D printers, I just want to say the Prusa i3 MK2S is an incredible printer. The print quality is outstanding. Been very, very happy with this thing. And again, being able to make these functional parts has been really helpful for all kinds of little projects. So just throwing that out there. It's not a bad thing to have. Alright, so these are the locking caster wheels that I'm going to utilize here. They do spin, and they lock, which is the most important thing. So I don't want this thing moving around when I have all this hardware on it. So spin, lock, no spin. Perfect. And they're 2-inch by 2-inch plates, so really easy to install. Just basically gonna measure them out to the corner, drill 4 holes, and then stick in those guys. So really easy. Be right back. Alright, so all 4 are installed now, and as you can see, they spin freely, and the wheels have decent bearings in them as far as how it spins and whatnot. And again, the lock does in fact work. I can't get it to go at all with the lock engaged, so should work pretty well. Now let's go ahead and stick it in the room with the mining rig. Here's a quick snapshot of the base sitting in my utility room, where 2 of my mining rigs will be located. And here you can see the casters installed, and also the 3D printed corner brackets holding everything together. As mentioned before, the bottom is just going to be used to house the power strip and the wattage meters. So with that completed, let's go ahead and jump back into the actual hardware components to complete the mining rig. Alright, so just a quick rundown of all the components. This is everything that will go inside of the mining rig. This is my second system, so I have it all together now, so I'll go ahead and go through it. So starting off, we have an MSI Z270A Pro motherboard. This does have 6 PCI Express lanes, so perfect for a mining rig. In their marketing material, they actually advertise it being used for that purpose, so good there. I have a 1000 watt RM1000X Corsair modular power supply. Using a Celeron G3930 processor, so very low-end processor. Again, we don't need a lot of processing power on the CPU, so that's fine. We got a standard kilowatt meter just to monitor our power usage. And then starting from the top here, we have 6 EVGA GTX 1070 graphics cards stacked up here. Using a TP-Link wireless and adapter for internet connection, 128 gigabyte M.2 SSD. We have 2 sticks of 4 gigabyte DDR4 memory for a total of 8 gigabytes. Motherboard standoffs and thumb screws, both for the motherboard and to actually secure the graphics cards themselves. I have the illuminated power LED latching switch. And then here are our PCI Express riser card and adapters. So we have the 6 riser cards here, which are going to sit on the case, as I'll show later. And then we have the SATA to 6-pin power adapters. We have the PCI 1X to USB adapters. I just have some really basic angle adapters for USB, so basically they just plug in this way so that there's more clearance for the cables. And then 6 male-to-male USB 3.0 cables. So those are all the components that are going to go into the case, and we'll go ahead and start building this today. Alright, so with the case assembled, the first component, aside from the power supply, is the motherboard. And so basically I just have it set to where it's more towards the front, but just far enough back to where I can still tap into the mounts that'll go on this piece of wood here, here, and here. And basically what I did is I tried it out using these standoffs here, and using the same size drill bit, 1/8 inch, that I used for like the thumb screws here. I just tapped into the wood a little bit, screwed in the thumb screw, it goes nice and tight, and then you can just use the standoff, and you can just use a thumb screw to sink it down. So I'm basically just going to use the motherboard to show me where I need to tap in. I'm not going to do all of them, I'll probably do like 5 or 6, and then I'll put in these standoffs and mount her on. Alright, so standoffs installed. I did not install all the standoffs, just the ones I thought were kind of the main kind of load-bearing, pressure points where I'm going to be pressing in components and whatnot. So let's go and get the motherboard installed. Alright, so the standoffs are installed. Got the thumb screws down to make sure it's nice and secure. So good to go there. One thing to make note of when you're installing the risers here underneath, the standoffs, if you're using anything but the stock Intel CPU heatsink, you may need to scoot the board a little bit so that you have clearance, where the heatsink ties into the board. The stock heatsink for this Celeron processor has like very, very shallow clearance, so it won't be an issue here. But if you have a beefier heatsink that has like a back plate, you may have to either move the wood over or move the motherboard this way so that you have full clearance on these 4 points here. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so just a quick little overview here. Again, I'm not going to go into details really of these builds because this is the same as any computer at this point, but we have our standoffs installed, some thumb screws holding the board down nice and tight, installed our CPU, our heatsink, our M.2 SSD right here. We have our 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's about it as far as the components there. Again, we are going to run our power switch over to these headers over here, and then we're going to plug in our 24-pin motherboard power connector, as well as our CPU 8-pin connector here. But other than that, the only other parts going in are again those 8X connectors. I'll go ahead and show that really quick before the actual graphics cards are installed. So basically, again, we have our 1X to USB adapter with the elbow. It essentially the fin. So the fin on these goes towards the front. So don't go the wrong way. The fin goes towards the front, and it just slides in, and you'll line this little notch up with that divider within the pins. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, see that divider? You just line up the notch with the divider there, and it slides right in. Make sure you go in even, pops down, and then the cable itself comes straight out, and we'll loop around and plug into the back of those PCI riser boards where the GPU sits. Alright, and kind of the last little kind of case mod before I start really assembling the system. I have, in order to power the motherboard on, I have these jumper cables that just plug into the motherboard headers, and they totally work. I mean, this is the there's a power switch here that you toggle, and then it lights up one of these LEDs as an indicator. And they're great for testing, but I don't really think they're a great long-term solution, and they look kind of crappy. So what I did is I went ahead and bored a 16mm hole in this larger piece of angled aluminum, and I'm going to install this metal latch switch that's pre-wired for motherboard headers and has a built-in power indicator LED. So when I click it on, it'll actually show that the system's up and running. So I'll go ahead and show that right now. Alright, so button's installed and wired up. Let's go ahead and fire it on. And it works. So perfect. Alright, so this is everything wired up before I install the GPUs. I got all my PCI Express power cables for the graphics cards. Got my 8-pin, 24-pin. Got my my switch wired up right here. And again, I have all the PCIe to USB adapters plugged in, ready to go. So I'll go ahead and throw on the GPUs now and go from there. Alright, so this is a shot from the back of the case. Basically, I'm using a really small, like 1/2" by 1/2" wooden plank right here as a just a place to kind of sync all these cables together so they're not just everywhere. I mean, it's not super clean, but it's enough to kind of keep things from getting too messy. Overall, it works pretty well. I'm probably going to figure out a way to secure this. I don't like how that bounces. It shouldn't make a difference, but I just don't like it. So I'm going to secure that down. But now with everything put together, it is time to install the OS and go from there. As far as the mining operating system is concerned, there's two routes to go. One is more of a Linux-based approach. For example, PIMP mining platform. It stands for Portable Instant Mining Platform, and basically it's a Linux distro that's made specifically for mining. Has all the graphics drivers set up for you. You just basically plug in your pool address and you're off the races. So super easy. But I've personally chosen to go Windows 10 with all these systems, more for monitoring purposes. I can kind of monitor and do things of that nature remotely a little bit easier. And I travel a lot for work, so that was ideal. But I'm not going to show the install process, but what I will do is in the next video show kind of what I did to kind of optimize and configure these systems to get optimal hash rates. So stay tuned for that. And here, this is kind of an expanded tool for these stacked cases. Being that I'm stacking these cases on top of each other, I needed a little more clearance to accommodate for the cables that plug into the GPUs. And so you can't just have them run on top of each other. You have to have a little bit of a gap in between. And I couldn't find any way to make it really stable just using like rubber feet and stuff like that. So I basically printed out my own risers that basically lock into the metal L brackets and allow me to have about 3 inches of clearance in between each one, and it's super solid when they're stacked, so they don't go anywhere. So found another use for the 3D printer, and then here you'll see in this next little clip kind of what the two look like stacked. All right, so let's take a quick peek in here in the closet room where we have the system running. Again, the dual stack configuration, IKEA stand. Got my kilowatt power meters, and then running off of a 15 amp surge protector. Also have the smart Wi-Fi sockets to allow me to basically power the system down remotely if anything ever freezes up. And then I have the BIOS set in the system to where as soon as power is re-engaged, they automatically boot back up. So kind of nice little kickstart system, for the system there. And again, I have my original system at the bottom, the newer one with the GTX 1070s on top. I do have some fans installed, 2 on top here, 2 down below. You probably can't see them. Controlled by this fan controller. That is to basically keep there's a lot of like hot air just sitting right up on top of here, and so with these fans, it blows it directly across up to that exhaust fan that goes straight outside. So now the room keeps pretty cool, for having 12 cards running inside of it. And again, just chugging away. Utilizing a KMV switch to basically toggle between the two systems. So, yeah, works out perfectly. It's been a fun little project. Now they're just mining away, doing what they're supposed to. If you have any questions, be sure to hit me up in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching.